Moving on now to discussions on the responsibility in regulating health, and looking in particular at the functionalist concept of the sick role and duties and obligations. This again can be a way of seen as a way of demonstrating how the sociological approaches have changed over time. When Durkheim was writing about and Parsons were writing about the obligations of the ill, it was very much using the structuralist or modernist way of looking at things, which sees an answer for all things found in science, a trust in social institutions and the authority not only of medicines but the criminal justice system, of the education system, and so on. So this idea of modernity and certainty and responsibility are reflected in this, and if you like, the kind of postmodernist rejection of the meta-narrative of from cradle to grave state responsibility, and the idea of individual responsibility, and challenging or through the authority of medical advice through the advent of internet information, all kind of around this. But without further ado, talking about the sick role. Now, the idea of the sick role is, if you like, an old-fashioned idea where the person who becomes ill has no responsibility for their illness. They give up that responsibility to the medical profession in its entirety, so that there's a kind of deal struck, a societal deal, if you like, between the sick and the state. They give up responsibility for the state. They, as this lady avoiding taxes, are exempt from day-to-day activities, whether it be in the home or in work. They are off duty until such time as they can be fixed and ready to report back to the work, as it were. And as long as they try to get well, in the meantime, the deal is struck. And this kind of image from the Carry On gives you an idea of the time we're talking about, the prevalence of the sick role, the early stages of the NHS, etc., where the individual submits entirely to the care and to the examination of the professionals, and in doing so, and in trying to get better, fulfills his task, and there's the suspension of daily duties on the other way. So this is, in essence, the sick role as discussed by functionalists. If you like, it's a binary, as they say. So it's a two-way option. It's an on and off switch. You get ill, you go to hospital, you go through the doors, you either come out again well, or you go out in a coffin. Rather grim, but this is the idea of medical advice according to this sick role idea. And you can see how it is modernist in that it relies entirely on external scientific knowledge to fix and create better. We've moved on from this role, and it is no longer certainly the only way in which we think of healthcare services and the regulation of healthcare services and how medical professionals work. It's much more likely to be seen as not a temporary thing, because the old way of looking at it, if you like, the basis on the biomedical model, which sees the body as a machine, is that it's just all illness is temporary by nature. But as society has grown ever older in terms of our aging population and ever more sophisticated, illness is no longer seen in this way, and that it's no longer seen as something to be devolved in terms of responsibility. It is now unclear whose responsibility health is compared to the old way. You talk about lifestyle choices. If it is true to say that a number of chronic illnesses are subsequent to lifestyle choices, the model of the doctor fixing all and you just having, thinking again about the biomedical model, it isolates illness to the locality on the body, if you like. And so that a cough is seen as something that needs to be fixed rather than the consequence of smoking. And this challenges there's this unclearness as to whose responsibility for health is, challenges the whole way going across, because it draws in that idea that we have to be responsible for our own healthcare and healthcare management. In these days of coronavirus, of course, the idea of prevention is very keen, and so we're all manically washing our hands, very clean hands here, in order to prevent the spread of illness. This is similar to what we're talking about. Instead of a cure-based model of I'm ill, so therefore I submit myself to the doctor take responsibility for making me better. We all are responsible for our health, and we're responsible for preventing poor health. And we need to take that responsibility. And you think again of lifestyle choices as well as preventative areas. This is seen as very important and a step away from the sick role. We have choices, and a very postmodern concept that is too, but we have choices to make about our lifestyle, how we live, and how we treat ourselves. There is a sense of patient empowerment. We need to have a handle of our own disease, particularly if we're talking about chronic disease, long-term disease that isn't curable in the instant fix way that the sick role would suggest. And it's more about management than it is prevention, or it's about ongoing needs rather than immediate needs. And the work of the medical profession is to minimize the disruption caused to our lives by our illness. In other words, it's to manage our illness ongoing rather than to look for an immediate cure and fix it and have people go back. It is this idea of ongoing management of a condition, which by its very nature needs the patients to have an understanding and full involvement. And understandably, it no longer has the responsibility solely in the medical profession. The priorities of patients need to be considered, or in fact need to be primary. What I mean by that is the patient needs to be empowered to be able to articulate what's important to them and to fit a bespoke treatment around that. This is very postmodern in the way that it looks at it, and it talks about individuals and it talks about choices, and it doesn't talk about obligation and duty. And this is, if you like, a transfer of one model to another on how these ideas are visible within where we are at the moment. And in fact, you could see, like these burgers, the whole idea is being flipped on its head. So it's no longer about the responsibility of the medical profession to fix someone and about it's no longer the responsibility of the patients to listen carefully, to submit to superior knowledge, and to do as they're told. It's the other way around. The patient needs to be center of their treatment. They need to be listened to. The structures of power or the structures of communication within the medical profession should be geared around listening and creating a package that suits each individual and fits each individual's lives and life choices.